Yeah, hello and welcome to my 2 days hands-on of a Zoom SSH-6 capsule you can see here, mounted to a Zoom H5 recorder to be precise. In this hands-on or review or whatever this is always quick and dirty. I want to talk a little bit about the characteristics of the SSH-6, but primarily I want to talk a little bit about the limitations you have to face if you really plan to go for the SSH-6. And yeah, I also want to mention the points why I will ship it back, and this is also the point why I'm making this now quick and dirty, because I think I will ship it back today or tomorrow or so. And I'm also not sure, by the way, if I will keep the H5 recorder, because it has a few major limitations for me personally at least. And yeah, so I'm not sure if I will keep it or not, or if I will get rid of it or not. But by the way, I also want to mention those points I don't like about the H5 at the end of this video, so stay tuned. But the primary topic of this video should be about the SSH-6, and because there are not that many videos online and comparisons online with the SSH-6, only with the other smaller capsules, I thought why not make a comparison. By the way, to start with the setup here, they are both about 20, or all three are about, 20 to 30, somewhere in between centimeters away, so not super close. I want to keep this distance constant as good as possible, and I also didn't want to be too close because I don't have foams on them, because I wanted them to be as close as possible. And actually I don't have a foam for the SE300B. I have to order it in the next days. But whatever, the point is, I want to make a comparison in between the NTG2 here on the left side, which is running from the phantom power, so not from the battery at the back. By the way, the NTG one is the same, just without the battery option at the back. I also have here the AKG blue line, which is a vintage, new old stock microphone about 3 weeks ago or so, which is a great microphone, sounding really soft, not too harsh, and giving you still very nice details. You should maybe hear it now. I don't know if I switch now to the SE300B, but yeah, let's say now you can hear the SE300B with the CK93, which capsule at the front, which is a hypercardioid. By the way, this is a supercardioid, I think, if I remember right now, the NTG2 with an interference tube in front, so it's giving you a little bit of a more shotgun-like pattern. But it's not that of an extreme shotgun pattern like on the Sennheiser MKH8060 or so, for example, or the MKH416, or how it's called, the good old 416. On the other hand, what's quite special, and this is also the point, by the way, why I raised the SSH-6 a little bit higher, as you can see here in this camera here. I raised it a little bit above the other ones, although it's distance-wise it's exactly the same. I raised it a little bit because it has a specialty. It has an H-shaped pattern here at the back and a directional mic at the front. And because of this H-shaped pattern at the back, which is recording the ambient noise, in general, room noise, outdoor ambient noise, which is coming from the sides, I wanted to keep it clear, keep the clearance here a little bit present, so the sound is still coming from the sides. And by the way, my room isn't treated, so there is a lot of reflection. And by the way, I will also always write, at the bottom somewhere, if the SSH-6 is in use actually for the sound you're hearing, there's also an indicator which mixture actually is in use. Because the great feature, and this is the point I bought this for, because it also sounded quite interesting, let's say it that way, in some comparisons online, also on YouTube and also in a few online communities. Because you can dial in exactly the amount of room noise you want to have. Because yes, you can also mix it in the recorder. There is an option where you just enable with this lever here. By the way, you can switch in between 0, -6, -12, +6. So you're getting more or less sound from the sides. And but there is also a specialty. You can also record raw, which means you have this small front microphone which is pointing to the front, and which is a cardioid, supercardioid, I think, also with a shorter interference tube, which is not that extreme of a shotgun, which could be a pro and a con. But the point is, in raw mode, you can mix this front mic and the back mic to your liking. And there are a few mixtures which are sounding really, really lifelike, and I wanted to have this. And so I went for it. But what I oversaw a little bit are a few points, which are now the points why I'm sending it back. Beside the fact that I have a few limitations with the H5 recorder, which, also will drive me, I think, to change it to, I don't know, any other recorder. Maybe I even jump into the cold water and go for a sound devices mix pre-free, because I'm recording a ton of interview stuff, and the people are changing in the pitch all the time, and it's really annoying over time with digital limiters, which is the case with the H5, for example. And even the F4 and F8 from Zoom, they use hybrid limiters, which you still hear that the limiters are kicking in. And so, yeah, I think, it's not sure yet, but I think I will change to a mix pre-free. But to get back to the point, you can mix and post exactly the mixture, but, and this I really oversaw, the first point why I'm shipping it back is the self noise. And the point is, yes, you don't oversee, those are two capsules, not only one, so you have kind of double the ground noise, double the self noise. But the issue is that because the sensitivity is also quite low, and as mentioned, I'm about 25 max centimeters away, and I'm already at level 8, which is really, really high for the H5. And side note, for example, the H5 is really, really clean up to level 6. But as soon as you're getting over 6, so at 7 or 8, the preamps are getting really, really noisy. And although and this is a little bit of a problem, I cannot test the microphone alone because it's a capsule, and so I cannot mount it somewhere else to test the self noise, or mount it over a Fathead Phantom, for example, which I also have here, because the NTG2 is giving also not that of a hot signal. Also the SE300B, and for example with a Fathead Phantom, you can use this, for example, in between the recorder and the cable, or the mic and the cable, and you're getting plus 18 or plus 20 or so class A dB amplifications, and this is helping a lot to get rid a little bit of the self noise, of a higher ground noise or self noise of a microphone, or of a preamplifier, if a preamplifier is the problem. So highly recommended. By the way, it's a little bit raising the highs, but that's not a problem with either of those two microphones at least. NTG2 is a little bit, it's gaining a little bit of better sound because of the more highs, and also the SE300B it's not a problem there. If you want a more neutral inline preamplifier, just check out the Cloud Lifter. By the way, it's a little bit more neutral, but also way bigger. To get back to the point, the problem is that I made a few overdubs with this microphone in raw mode, so I had the option to mix it in post, the room noise accordingly, and the problem was that the self noise is really, really high. And because I also plan to use this microphone on cameras, for example, as soon as you're a little bit further away, I'm now 20 centimeters away, if you're, let's say, 1 meter or 2 meters away, it's nearly unusable, because you need that high levels to get to about minus 12 dBs, by the way, which is the sweet spot. You always should stay somewhere in this range, or a little bit below this range, a little bit below minus 12, because then you also have enough headroom, and if the input is clipping digitally, it's gone, it's clipping. And this is also a problem, by the way, with the digital limiters, because they just try after the analog to digital conversion to limit the volume, and which, if there is too much gain for the input converter, the AD converter, the analog digital converter, if you have full value, you have full value, you cannot change it anymore or get any information out of it anymore. So keep this in mind. And so don't go to minus 6 or so levels, just level out at minus 12 or minus 18 or so. Especially with the 24 bits, 96 kilohertz, which the H5 is capable of, but only in stereo mode. But nonetheless, 24 bits and 96 kilohertz are also giving you more playroom or headroom if you plan to boost the levels, by the way, in post. But to get back to the point, as always, or again, I made a comparison at night, because my room isn't treated, and at night it's as silent as possible. And I also switched off everything, really everything close to the microphones. And yeah, let's check out the ground or self noise test. By the way, I used the same levels as I'm using now to really record this, which is giving you about the same output level. So let's check it out. Well, yeah, the point is that because of the two capsules, you have more noise, and because the capsules are not that sensitive. And I mean, most important is the front part because they're this is pointing to the front. So I leveled for this mic, by the way, but it's really a problem. And because I planned to use this mic on cameras, on booms, maybe even, although it's not making that much sense because you cannot look on the recorder anymore. And the H5 is also not coming with a Wi-Fi, a Bluetooth app or anything to check the levels, which is really also a problem. I mean, it's not possible to do that. It's really limited. You need to be really close. By the way, according to the H5, together with this capsule, what I also really hate about it, and I will switch now to the SSH-6 if I'm not using it already. The problem is it's not shock mounted. You can everywhere you're touching. I mean, even here at the tripod, if I'm touching a little bit or clamping a little bit, you can hear everything. It's not shock mounted, which is really a problem because with other microphones like the NTG2 or the SE300B, you can always, wait, I have here another SE300B because I also want to make a few XY recordings. I mean, you can always go for such a Rycode, Rycode Lyre. This is from Rode, but it's using the Lyre system. It's called the SM3-R, yes, which is then coming also with a flash shoe, which is great to have. And here it's not a problem. You mount the mic, you're putting a small foam at the front, and you're ready to shoot. The problem with the H5 together with the SSH-6 is that it's a huge setup. I mean, it's really, really long. The problem is that you need a shock mount which is capable of holding this setup. And for example, I went for the, what's it called? The SMM8, SMM8 from Movo. And this is more robust, and it should hold the H5 together, or it was planned to hold the SSH-6 together with the H5 in place. And the rubber is really, 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 really stable, which I like about it. But the problem was that the H5 is not even at the back. There's a little bit of a hump around the fret, and so you cannot mount this thing straight onto the H5. And every time you're bumping into or you're just touching the recorder, there was always the risk that it's turning on the shock mount. And to be honest, I don't want to go for the super, super huge Rycode, the other Rode with Rycode Lyre system, because there are also bigger ones. But as soon as you go for those, the setup is getting this high or even higher. And I don't want such a bulky setup onto a small camcorder or on any camera. Even if it's a camcorder, I don't want to use it that way. And the non-existent shock mount, let's touch it again. And yeah, I mean, the non-existent shock mount is really a huge limitation. because you also need to be patient that there is no one touching the tripod, that there's no one, let's say for example, I have a little bit of a problem, and also at work we have a problem a little bit that the tram is moving by, so it's quite close, and the problem is that you have a little bit of, or you get a little bit of vibrations through the complete building, or it's vibrating a little bit, the whole building. We have a pro that we have a textile floor, but the problem is if you mount, for example, the recorder on a normal standard tripod and put it on a concrete floor, or let's say you're recording theaters, plays, concerts, panel discussions, whatever, and you mount, for example, this recorder onto the ceiling somewhere on a truss system or so, for example, you get every vibration. And for example, we also had the problem in the past, also at work, that if someone slapped the door beneath the office, every time you also had a lot of vibrations, and you always heard this. And I mean, this is a major issue. I mean, every time you want to record with this capsule, and this is also a problem with other capsules, like for example the EXH6. We are using the H6, by the way, at work, so I have also the XYH6, sorry. Here, and here you also there's also no shock mount, for example. Also keep in mind that you need something to compensate for that. What's better, on the other hand, I mean, there is also the MS capsule, which is way better self noise wise than the SSH-6, by the way. So go for that one for ambient plus mid mic sound, because it's also a mid mic with an H-shaped pattern at the sides. And yeah, the only one which is really great also for handheld shooting somewhere on the go to record a few sound effects or so is the originally included XYH5, because the capsules, and I used the left camera, as you can see, it's shock mounted, and with this one it's possible to get also very nice on the go recordings. But with this one here, by the way, there's also a huge risk that you're bumping something at the front because it's extending that long. And I mean, by the way, also one of the facts why I'm sending it back, it's coming with this furry dead cat thing here. The problem is that there is nearly no dampening in between the hair and the capsule directly. And this means that, for example, instead of using a foam and then putting this above, like with other microphones, the case, you need to live with this one here, because there is no original foam included. There is no optional foam available for this microphone. There are a few third-party manufacturers, yes, but there is no foam included. And so every time you're bumping at the front, you're touching directly the capsule, more or less. And so you're also getting way more force onto the capsule, onto the multi-mount or universal mount, and also onto the recorder. And if the recorder is then not holding perfectly, it's twisting on the shock mount. And this is really one of the worst dead cats I ever used, sorry. Because also you hear a little bit of the hairs moving, because it's really that thin. There is nothing, nearly no material. And this I really hate, because for example, I used a lot of optional third-party dead cats, and they normally go over the original foam, which is great, because you then can also use indoor just the foam, and for outdoor shots you just put the dead cat additionally on them, and they're working perfectly without any problem. But here for indoor shots you don't have any foam protection or whatever. Beside, by the way, what I also absolutely don't like about this capsule, and also about the other capsule, this is a design fact. It's mounted directly to the recorder. So, for example, if I want to record myself, I don't see anything on the display. There's also no remote control possible with the H5, also not with the H6 and the F4, only the F8 and upwards. They offer, at least I think it's one of the only Zoom is offering an app, but I'm not sure now. Maybe the Q6 or Q5 or so also has an app. I don't know now. But the point is, you cannot look on the display. You always need to keep an eye on the shock, so you're not touching anything. And I mean, by the way, you also cannot use the capsule externally properly, because yes, there is an extension cable, I know, But I mean, this extension cable is coming without a shock mount. It's coming for $120, and the problem is you cannot. The third point, you cannot even mount a shock mount, a standard shock mount, like the SMR SM3-R, which I showed you already, on this microphone at the front or so, because there are everywhere the openings for the mic capsules, and so you cannot mount it there. You're changing the mic pattern, or you're changing the sound of a microphone. And as soon as you have those Rycote Lyre clamps mounted, you cannot put a dead cat, the original one, as I showed you, or you can also not use any foam on there. You could put the whole system in a blimp, yes, but who is using the whole recorder and everything inside a blimp? I mean, that's stupid, sorry. Okay, so this is another point which I really don't like. In general, I mean, the sound is quite clear. I liked the fact that I can mix down the two channels in post. But what I really hate about the H5, also in combination with this, you can only, and I mentioned it already, and now let's get to the H5 side. You cannot record 4-channel MP3. You cannot record 4-channel 24 bits 96 kilohertz. I mean, yes, it's okay that you can record at least in 24-bit 96 with 2 channels, but I mean, if you plan to use this capsule, for example, for as an additional microphone to get a little bit of the room sound, additionally to, for example, to wireless kits, lav kits, or so, if someone is interviewing or if 2 people are talking, for example, on a podium or so, it's not possible to record in 24 bits 96 kilohertz. I mean, that it's not able to record 4-channel MP3. I mean, I can live with that. I'm always recording with WAV files at full quality, if with the highest quality possible. But this is really a limitation which I absolutely hate. Beside, and I will also put a picture so you can see this a little bit better. The back, as mentioned, is not straight. This means that, for example, I have here now a 200 PL plate in use, which is working quite well because there is a little bit of space around the fret. But with other mounting options, it's not working because you cannot connect flat to the bottom or to the back side of a recorder. And this is a problem not only with not only a problem with the SMM8 for Movo, because and I could have cut out here the whole rubber just to be able to mount it a little bit better, but I don't want to modify a brand new, or to cut around on a brand new shock mount just to get a little bit of better connection. I also had problems, for example, with some magic arms which weren't holding that well. So if you plan to go for it, go for a magic arm with a thick rubber padded end part, so it's connecting better to the back. Otherwise, it's not really holding that well. Besides, I let it mounted, for example, on one of those 501 PL third-party plates, not the original one, yes. But this plate lost the softeners, for example, and so the softeners got in contact with the rubber padding, and so it turned green, yellowish green. After not even a week, I think I let it on there for 4 or 5 days or so, which is also annoying. I mean, this is a standard scenario in a studio, for example, that you let it mounted on a tripod or on a small clamp. For example, I also like to use such small tabletop tripods, which are from King Joy. It's the KT30, by the way. But you can, because I like to use them because you can put them on a table, for example, and use recorders with them. Use small LED lights to brighten up someone a little bit. Or audio recorders, cameras, whatever. But that you're not allowed kind of to let it mounted onto such a plate. It's really, really, really annoying. Besides, I didn't make that great experiences with rubber padded or rubber coated devices, because I had a few devices which lost the rubber really fast on the corners. They are rounded off here with the H5, yes, but I mean, I had nearly all my rubber padded devices went crazy after a few years. I mean, they get sticky, they lose the rubber on the corners way faster, And I mean, what's the yeah, it's really grippy. Yes, I like to hand hold it in this shape now, but I mean, what's the use if the back is also bent, and so it's not holding that well on cameras and so on. Yeah, another limitation, by the way, and wait a little bit. I also have this here. I also have this SSH-6, which I just tested once, which I went for just because, and this is also one of the points why I think I will get rid of the H5, and which I also hate about our H6 at work. So maybe I use it at work or so. The problem is there is a backup recording feature inside the H5. Yes, but not for the XLR ports. Only for the optional capsules, which is okay. But you need, for example, this SSH-6 capsule with the two XLR ports at the side to connect, for example, two wireless mic systems. Not a problem. You don't need phantom power. This is not providing phantom power, by the way. But so you can make a backup recording internally. But as far as I know, this big backup recording is also only possible in 24 bits, 48 kilohertz, not 96. And secondly, as far as I remember, and secondly, you cannot make a backup recording for the XLR ports. And this is really, really, really annoying. Because, for example, I also plan to use my both SE300Bs, here's the second one again, for XY, AB, or TF pattern recording. And you cannot make a backup recording with those two external, or with those two XLR channels, let's call it that way. Beside, by the way, also a limitation which I really hate, because I have most of the time just 46, 128, and I have one 256 gigabyte card for my camcorder, which is actually recording here. It's a VXF 990, by the way. Yeah, I mean, the card size, for example, you need SDHC cards for this recorder. So the maximum card size is 32 gigabytes. It's not 64, 128, 256, it's 32. And the problem is, for example, as I have replacement cards, or kind of all my replacement cards are 128 gigabyte cards, more or less. I cannot use a 128 gigabyte card in here. I need to go for my, and I have, I think, a replacement card with micro SDHC, which I use as a replacement, and I now carry around as a replacement for my H5. And this is also quite annoying, I have to say. Besides the fact there is no remote control possible if you're recording yourself with any capsule, not only with the SSH-6, for example. It's always kind of a problem. And for example, this is also one point which I forgot to mention. As soon as you mount this setup here on top of the camera, yes, you also don't see the display, and without remote control, you cannot check anything. I mean, you can check it over the headphones port, which is also quite noisy, by the way. It's not the best, but at the price point, it's okay. The problem I had also was that, for example, you also cannot mount the recorder sideways. So the display is, for example, pointing sideways, left or right. Most of the time right, because I have it on my right shoulder, for example, the camera. It's not possible here because you cannot turn this capsule here, and because the side pattern should be here on this axis here. The problem is, as soon as you're twisting or turning the whole recorder, the side pattern is up and down, which is not wanted, or which you don't want to have, because you always want the reflections coming from the side and record the sound from the sides. And so you also cannot turn it to the side to have a look on the display. And so it also kind of ruins my plan to use it as an on-camera mic, additionally to the very low sensitive capsules and to the very high self-noise of the preamp and or of the capsules. Yeah, in total, I think I will get rid of the H5. Yes, I think I will go for the Mix Pre-Free, because there you get the very good Cashmere, I think they're called, preamps. So I also don't need the fatted preamp. This is the fatted Phantom, by the way, which is also passing through 48 volts, which I used till now with the NTG2 test-wise a little bit, and also with the SE300B. So if you have H5, you can also go for one of those, and you're getting definitely better, a way lower noise floor out of your microphones. It's a very nice booster. I mean, with a mix pre-free, to get back to that point, you get the Kashmir preamps where you don't need this, where you can also use dynamic mics like the Electro Voice RE20, RE320, the new smaller one, or the SM7B, SM57, 58, the smaller ones, the hand mics. I mean, you can use all those mics directly. And as I most of the time only record 2 or maybe 3 channels max, for not that often, really 9 out of 10 times I use a maximum of 3 channels. I mean, the mix pre-free would be kind of perfect, and because you get those analog limiters, you don't need to rely on backup recording. You don't need to, because it's also quite it also has a very low self noise. You also don't need to treat every recording according the noise levels. And the problem is, by the way, also with the limiters, if they kick in, you always hear them pushing a little bit, and you hear a little bit of those crackling noises. Not only with the H5, also with other recorders. This is standard, but to have analog limiters is really a benefit. And what I'm missing on the mix pre-free, on the other hand, is 12 and 24 volts power, which this is providing, because I also have a super cheap, I think it's Fluorion TM800 or TM700 or so, whatever. It's the blue one with the gold ring. And this one is running really, really well with 12 volts and 24 volts, but not with 48 volts. And the mix pre-free only offers 48 volts. So yeah, kind of a small limitation, but because you can also mount the mix pre-free beneath the camera, it's also way easier to mount compared to this one, especially here. And if I want a directional mic, I just use one of the SM3Rs and use a small short XLR cable, and you're ready to shoot and you're ready to go. By the way, if you're interested, I also plan to make an entry-level fluid head shootout with basically all entry-level fluid heads. I have now 6 or 7 lying around, which I need to combine to a test. There's also planned to make a basic video about differences in between real fluid heads and normal friction-based heads, so everyone out there knows the difference. And yeah, I also plan other videos, to be precise. So stay tuned. I hope you enjoyed it. Sorry for the long test or long review. And yeah, thanks for watching. Don't forget to subscribe, by the way, and don't forget to enable the bell so you get a notification as soon as a new video is out. And by the way, you can also use the affiliate links in my description. I mean, yeah, those are affiliate links, also directly to Amazon. So I get a few cents or so if you're buying stuff, and yeah, you're also supporting me that way. Okay, that's it. Thanks for watching. Bye.